Good morning. Welcome into Let's Bet Out here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. I'm Mark Zinno. He's Jared Smith. Happy Sunday. Happy Week 14 in the NFL as we get you set for the day ahead. We'll update the injury moves, line moves as well. We'll get propping with Bobby, Prop Holiday. Bobby Stanley, Prop Holiday will join us coming up on the show. We'll talk some teasers as well. Key games of the week, and of course, we'll have our plays of the day. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. It is where you can leave all your comments and all your questions. Let us know what games you're on, what questions you have, and download the Pickswise app as well. It's available on the Apple Store and Google Play. Jared, good morning, welcome, and happy Week 14 in the NFL.
Very exciting. Congratulations on singing second yesterday. Very exciting game. And the game goes over, too. So salute to Army. And salutes to anyone who was brave enough to bet the over yesterday. It was a little dicey there at times, but the streak ended. It took overtime.
To all the poor bastards who took the under and watched it go down in flames in overtime, we will have a moment of silence. Bow your heads, please. There we go. Okay, good. Silence. It is over. The streak is over. Look. The first 55 minutes of that game stunk. It was terrible. It was bad watching. Like it was gross all around. It had like 13 punts and 12 total first downs. It was a bad, ugly football game. But the last 5 minutes of the game in overtime gave you all the excitement you needed and then some. And did you see the Navy running back? That poor kid. He was crying after he fumbled that ball.
Such an emotional game. It's an emotional game.
I watched him cry and I sort of smiled and chuckled. But then again, I didn't want to do that.
They're all going to be working together soon, right? Like they're on the field and they're enemies and their opponents, but then you move on to bigger and better things. Everyone in that game obviously will move on to much greater things, and they'll all be on the same team pretty soon, right?
Yeah. We still don't like the Navy. Anyway, all right, let's move on here. We got some injury updates to get through. A couple of them here in this Pittsburgh Ravens game. The Steelers activate kicker Chris Boswell from injury reserve. They're getting at least more consistency from him. And the Ravens activate J.K. Dobbins from injured reserve. He'll see his first action the entire year. And the Cowboys as well will activate wide receiver James Washington from IR. So, look, this Steelers-Ravens game, a little bit dicey on a lot of different fronts. Look-ahead line was Ravens -5. We flipped this thing all the way to Steelers. Went up to 2. I think it's back down to 1.5. Let me just double-check what the odds are across the board here in that game. But, there was a lot of, we have some 2s out there still. For the most part, but you're seeing almost a 7-point swing there in that game from Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley. Feels slightly like a little bit of an overcorrection to Pittsburgh, but nonetheless, some of those injuries, Jared, could play a big role coming up today.
Yeah, the Boswell thing, you don't really look too much at a kicker to have a difference, but when the total of a game is 36.5 now is what I'm seeing over at the Westgate, the kicker might matter, right? Like there might be a couple of plays where you really want to have your A-plus guy out there making these kicks because every point clearly will matter in this game. I do agree with you that the move is a little overstated. It's basically implying a 7.5-point move from Lamar to Huntley, which I think is maybe a point too high, maybe a half a point too high. Either way, I think it's pretty consensus based off of the movement back towards Baltimore this week. It hasn't fully moved, but it's kind of drifted back towards the Ravens this week at times. I think the market tells you that maybe Lamar is worth only 6 points or 6.5 based off of Huntley, and we'll see how that works out today. I think it's a little bit even more overstated when you consider the low total and you consider which numbers you're moving through. 4-3 on the Ravens side, and then you get it past that key number, and then you even touch. Like, to me, I was able to grab a Ravens +3 very early in the week, and to me that is a very valuable bet. It won't get back there, but I still think 2. If it gets back to 2.5 today, I think Baltimore would absolutely be the play still.
Speaking of key numbers, let's get to some key games and a key number sitting out there. And we'll start here as I am appropriately wearing the shirt of...
Big game for you guys today. Big game.
Giants. Big game. Big game. That number, key number sitting at 7. It's interesting. I just saw this pop up on Twitter. Get this. Ready? The Giants game against the Eagles today. It's the 7th game that the Giants have played against an 11-1 team or better in the last 25 seasons. That's the most in the NFL. The next closest team has 4 games. The Giants have only won 2 of those games since 1998. So, while I'd love the Giants to win, and I genuinely don't think they will, I'm trying to bring my mojo. I know you like to wear the Jets shirt every now and then on the show, so I figured I was doing the show with Jared today. I'd bring out the Giants shirt and hope for the best. Hope for the best here. But look, Eagles are 1-4 ATS on the road. The Giants have played everybody tough, to their credit, with all the injuries and all the guys that they don't have at skill positions and everything else. They've managed to keep games close for the most part and play guys tough. I think the regression is here for the Giants. I don't know if they're necessarily going to win many more games the rest of the way out, but that's not what we're talking about here. Can they keep it within 7? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, low total too, and I bet under in this game. I got 44.5. It does look like the market's still kind of painted there across the board. I was surprised this week with the Saquon news. I didn't know he was as banged up as it looks like the injury report has indicated. I don't think he's going to play. Maybe if he does play, he's only less than 100%, right? I obviously he's a guy that is really important because it takes a lot of the pressure off Daniel Jones. And I am seeing right now Saquon Barkley questionable. So it doesn't look like we're going to get much of an answer until about an hour and a half. The part that was really intriguing to me about this under was how the Eagles defense played last week against Derrick Henry, which was 8 in the box on almost half of their snaps, and then disguising coverages very well on the back end and making once they took the running game away and it was 21-0, whatever the score was when they jumped out to that big lead. And then all of a sudden it was, all right, Ryan Tannehill, now you have to beat us. Well, they played this very unique secondary coverage, scheme where they were kind of shifting in and out between cover 3 and cover 2. And Ryan Tannehill looked very confused. And that game was a stone cold blowout, even though a lot of sharp money came in on Tennessee last week. And I think my point is if the Eagles play that scheme again and they play it well, and Jonathan Gannon schemes it up nicely like he did against Tennessee last week, I think Daniel Jones is going to really struggle to diagnose. Like if Ryan Tannehill couldn't diagnose, I don't trust Daniel Jones to be able to diagnose properly. And then you take away Saquon Barkley, it's going to be struggle for the Giants to score some points in this game, I think.
The only saving grace the Giants have is Daniel Jones and his legs today. Much similar to what Jalen Hurts can do with his. Daniel Jones can do the same thing, and it could at least give the Giants the ability to move the ball a little bit better than what we thought. Take off on 3rd and 7, get 9 yards, extend a drive, help flip the field. Little things like that over the course of the game may keep the Giants in closer position than people think. All right.
What's the weather? I heard that, I don't know, my East Coast vibe's not as strong as they were last year. It does look like rain and light winds today. It doesn't look like it's going to be that bad, but it's just, how MetLife can be.
Rain, right. Possible light rain. So,
how MetLife can be. It can be a little wonky.
Official. So just make of that what you will about Clete Blakeman being the official. There'll be a lot of flags thrown.
Didn't think about that.
Place. Yeah. Track the officials, folks. If you don't, there are plenty of reports out there on how officials trend and what direction they trend.
Yes.
It's not something you hang your handicap on. It is something you absolutely should look at one way or another. All right, a couple more key games here. Jets at Bills on the cross side of town. Jared, this is just too many points. It's too many points. I mean, I get the Jets, offensively a little bit challenged still, even with Mike White where he is right now. And look, Mike White played against the Bills last year. He got smoked. But this is a completely different Jets defense. This number's back down to 9.5 in certain spots. I've been saying Jets all week long. I don't know if the Jets win the game, but the Bills have already not beat double-digit spreads this year against the Jets, the Lions, and the Green Bay Packers. Too many points for me. I'll take the Jets.
Yeah, and the divisional underdogs have definitely been profitable this season. The only thing and again, this is more my Jets fandom speaking than my neutral, unbiased analyst. But when you've beaten a team already in early in the season, it's hard. It's right. Like that's the cliche. It's hard to beat a team twice. We use it in the playoffs. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. I think if you talk about Mike White and being able to control tempo, control his emotions, control his spurtability, right? Like he has these upside swings that are so solid. Like he looks at times like the best quarterback in the league. Like he had those moments last year. He had the moments in the second half against the Vikings, not in the red zone, but they were slinging it all over the yard last week, and they just couldn't quite find pay dirt. If they can make a few plays and he can make a few throws in the red zone, that's key. The one issue that I could see blowing this whole thing up is if you go back and you watch his performance against Buffalo last year. He really struggled against this defense. He made a bunch of turnover-worthy throws, and it was his worst performance as a Jet. And it was kind of the performance that took the Mike White aura and knocked it back down to, all right, he's just a run-of-the-mill backup quarterback. Like we were all high on White, right? And, he beats the Bengals, and then he gets hurt in the first week, in the first quarter against the Colts on that Thursday night game. And then the following week against Buffalo, everyone's really excited because he's healthy and this is it. This is the performance. He's home. He's facing the Bills. This is going to be, and he flops and falls on his face because this defense just owns him. So that to me is the worst case scenario, is if it's a repeat performance of last year against this defense. I think the final score in that game was 45-17. So keep that in mind if it's another Mike White dud. But if he plays well and he makes throws, yes, they should be in this game, and the defense clearly light years ahead of where they were last year.
Barrett, just say it with me. Jets. Jets. Let's go.
I hope you're right, bud. I didn't bet the game, but I would love nothing more than to see this Bills team lose again.
Yeah, I took them in circa. So they were one of the teams that I liked today. Speaking of another team,
maybe I'll take them in my contest too. I'm in Todd Furman's Bet the Board free contest. Maybe I'll pop them in this week for you.
Well, if you like trends, how do you feel about 70% ATS? Because that's what Tom Brady is in his career as an underdog. He's also 77% ATS as a dog coming off an ATS loss, which means Brady doesn't not cover the spread back-to-back as a dog all that often. So that said, he's facing the best defense in the league in the 49ers. That's a healthy defense, and they're very good, but it's Brock Purdy. Points are going to be at a premium here. You're getting a low total again. I'm not going to walk away from Brady getting 3.5 more than a field goal. Sorry. I know things are bad, and I'm not saying the Buccaneers offense is going to be good here, but again, there's a lot of variance here that is on the 49ers side to be able to score more than the Buccaneers can.
What a fun battle this week on this line. It has not left the range of 3.5, 4, and we talked about it a little bit on Playbook. Even on Wednesday when we recorded Playbook, it was obvious that once it got to 3, that's where the Niners money stepped in. Once it got to 4, that's where the Bucks money stepped in. Like it was in this narrow range all week. And when that happens, there's obviously respected money on both sides of the aisle here. And I think it makes sense if you think about who the Niners are as a team right now and what Brock Purdy brings to the table. And I understand why there's some really sharp bettors that think there is not going to be a drop-off, a significant drop-off, at least the 3-point drop-off that the look-ahead indicated at 6.5 last week, right? I don't think there's going to be a 3-point drop-off between Jimmy G and Purdy. I think there's a chance that Purdy comes in and runs the offense, not quite to the level, but maybe right there. And I think the mobility of Brock Purdy adds a mysterious element to this offense that maybe the Bucs won't be able to scheme for. So if anything, you take away Jimmy G's, knowledge of the offense and, overall accuracy, but you add in Purdy's legs. All right, I could see why this line really hasn't moved a whole lot from the starter to the backup this week. I really think the total is the move for me here. I bet the over at 37. The Bucs have the highest passing percentage rate in the NFL, so let's game script it out. Niners take the lead, and the Bucs are just going to be tossing it around the yard all day. Even if the Niners fall behind, I still think the Bucs are going to be throwing it. Brady going back home to San Francisco. He's a Niners fan. He wants to perform. I'm sure he's got a bunch of family and friends in the crowd today. So I could see this game being in the 20s on both sides. And I think 37 is that's the Steelers-Ravens total with Kenny Pickett and Huntley in a ridiculously defensive-minded game. Like, I don't get the same vibes Ravens-Steelers that I do Bucs-Niners, and yet the total's the same. So I think over to me is the move here.
One more game to get to. Very interesting Sunday night. Miami and the Chargers. Dolphins looking to stay hot here and bounce back after their beating last week at the hands of the 49ers. Chargers, hey, guess what? They're always involved in a field goal game. So why not take the home dog here? I think the Chargers are a great teaser option to this week as well. But how do you read this one, Jared?
Yeah, this one's fun. I didn't look at the injury report this morning. Let me pop up the Chargers. I think based what I was hearing earlier in the week when we taped Playbook, it looked like the whole right side of that Chargers offensive line was going to play. Pipkin's doubtful. Zion Johnson was a full participant. Corey Linsley, full participant. So it looks like the interior is going to play, but the right tackle's out. And now you got Derwin James is doubtful, who's, I think the most important player on this Chargers defense. And you don't say that very often about a safety, but he does so much in the run and the pass. I could absolutely, to me, it was all about the offensive line for the Chargers. And once those guys were announced healthy for the most part, other than Pimpkins, this total steamed up, right? Like we were sitting in the 51, 52, 53 range. Yeah, this thing really steamed up. And I think that, you're right. I just saw 55 pop up over at the market. So I would say points, right? But I don't feel at 55 you're getting a fair number. But I would be shocked if this game someone doesn't get to 30 in this game.
So many things have to go right for you to hit 56 in an NFL game. Your punter isn't even showing up for the game, might not even dress. Like, that's literally what has to happen at this point in time.
You need a defensive score. You need something fluky. Well, you need a high-paced game.
If you're going to bet that game, the point is that they're going for it on fourth down routinely. No one's settling for field goals here. Like, it's just there's a lot of things that have to go right for you to nail a total that high. So caveat emptor, as they say, buyer beware. Yeah. All right. Speaking of buyers here, let's move over and talk some props here with our boy Bobby Stanley, a.k.a. Prop Holiday, as we get you set for this Sunday NFL slate here. And, Bobby, you heard us breaking down all the games there. Before we get to your plays, any sort of reaction to the Week 14 key games that we just broke down?
You guys touched on a lot of good points. The Bills-Jets game is very interesting to me. I saw it over 10.5 on one book, 9.5, I think, over on FanDuel. I know you guys are leaning Jets. Mike White in the snow, double-digit wins. I don't know if I'll fully buy that.
Is it snowing in Buffalo today? Is that a confirmed weather report? That changes my feeling because neither team runs the ball really that well, right?
It's 90% chance of precipitation and double-digit wins.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. So I'm looking
I would
at
take the 10 there. I would take the 10 there.
I'll say this. Josh Allen, 2-2 against the Jets at home in his career in the regular season, but the average margin of victory in those wins was 13.5 points. Mike White looks great against Chicago. Mike White looked, I would say, damn good against Minnesota. The biggest issue there was play calling, I would say, last week. I don't know. So my gut tells me Buffalo in a game that matters. Josh Allen gets in the end zone against the Jets in his career, so something to keep an eye on later on. A couple other games you mentioned, divisional underdogs, Jared. Cleveland plus 5.5. Burrow's 0-5.
That line's on the move. It's down to 3.5 now. Someone's betting Cleveland really hard.
Bobby, let's talk about this narrative of Joe Burrow is 0-4 against the Bengals. 0-4 against the Browns. This will now be the third straight game where he's facing a different quarterback for the Browns. Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, and then last year Baker Mayfield. So, don't get sucked into this narrative that it's the same exact Brown team every time. And not only that, he's only in the league for his third year. So it's I don't want bettors to get sucked into narratives here that don't actually apply to anything. That's more coincidence than anything else. Similar to the Kirk Cousins in primetime narrative, it's more coincidence than anything else. All quarterbacks are better at 1 o'clock. Why? Because they have a larger sample set. They play more 1 o'clock games. So obviously they're going to be better at 1 o'clock statistically. So I get it. And I acknowledge that it's there. And I believe part of it is what is driving some of this midweek line movement down, because public bettors are betting on Cleveland because he's never beaten the Browns. I don't buy it, especially the way the Bengals are playing right now, both offensively and defensively. I'm not going to get sucked into a narrative as far as the handicap.
Bengals are one of the hottest teams in the league. Joe Burrow, since week 5, is playing some of the best football of his career. No disrespect. I have nothing to say against that. My only thing is, you mentioned Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield, now Deshaun Watson. I think it's that front four of Cleveland that's done a damn good job. Myles Garrett specifically has had a lot of good games against Joe Burrow.
They have. But is the offensive line now better than what we've seen at any other point, or at least playing better than what we've seen at any other point for Joe Burrow?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
No, and again, I'm not sniping at you, Bobby. You know I love you, but it's just one of those things when we talk narratives, bettors can get easily sucked into narratives that aren't actually things that are valid trends to stand behind.
It caught my eye at 5.5. The fact that it's down to 3.5, I guess someone caught on to something. So 5.5 is no longer a thing.
Yeah, but that's not public. That's not public news. Like that, Sharp Money hammered that down. If that thing moved in the last 2 hours, not even hour and almost 45 minutes. So for a line to move 2 points in 45 minutes, that's pretty significant sharp action there.
And then the last line that caught my eye was another mover earlier in the week. Baltimore plus 1.5. I originally was a pick'em, moved to 1.5. I saw it on the write-up. Huntley's 1-3 as a starter in his career. Not great. His one win was on the road. He is on the road today against Pittsburgh. He lost 16-13 last year to Pittsburgh. What caught my eye last week against Denver, he completed 84% of his passes against the Denver Broncos secondary completely cold. No preparation, no expectation going into that game. He gets back some version of J.K. Dobbins today. I trust Baltimore's offense a little bit more than I trust Pittsburgh's. And defensively, I would take Baltimore just in general. So it's going to be a close game. It's probably going to be a field goal game. I would take Baltimore plus the 1.5. I don't hate Huntley. That offense still moves pretty effectively with him versus Lamar Jackson. Whether it gets in the end zone is another story, but they're able to move the ball up and downfield with Caleb Huntley.
Must have read some guy's column on Pickswise this week talking about how the Ravens were a good bet. I don't know who that person was.
Who's that guy? Pickswise.com has some things up there. I write for that site all the time. So
we got some guys. And sadly, Jared, I do not have my Baker Mayfield jersey. I'm hoping it arrives by Christmas. They made it excessively expensive on NFL Shop, but it is one of the hottest items from what I've heard.
They did.
Can I just say this? I am going to hammer the Green Bay Packers next week against the Los Angeles Rams. Baker Mayfield sucked for 57 minutes of that football game. He was awful. Yes. He was awful. And anybody who only just watched the highlights for the last 3 minutes is going to get suckered into thinking the Rams all of a sudden have a good offense. Newsflash, they don't. They don't.
Do not have a good offense. They do not have a good offense. What they do have is a damn good defense, and 2 major drives of that LA Rams game killed by a fumble on Cam Akers. They were completely marching. That one got completely negated. They were going to get in the end zone, or at least get 3 points out of that. And then another one was completely bereft of penalties. The offensive line couldn't stay in front of the Las Vegas Raiders defensive line. So they were moving it with a little more frequency, but I do agree there were some Baker Mayfield throws that, what we've seen all season, in the right direction, completely short. I don't know if that's his arm strength. I don't know if that's his lower body, but he was throwing some ducks. That's not
and listen, the fact that the Packers didn't play this week, and could actually score some points, might change the line, or at least the perception of it, makes me even happier about it. This will be a short number, 3.5, maybe 4.5. Packers will win this game by a touchdown.
At home, what if Jordan Love starts? All right, what if Jordan Love starts?
Well, then that's a whole different thing. Now, hopefully Rodgers coming off the bye should be healthy enough to go. Stop messing with my mojo, bro. All right, let's
start. So it opened, just to make it clear, the Packers opened 9.5. It's now 7.5.
What? Really? They opened up more than a touchdown?
You don't want to bet the Packers? You don't want to bet the Packers?
9.5. If you get me under a
So
touchdown,
7.5 now after the Baker news.
If you get me under a touchdown, yeah, I'll take it at 6.5.
Okay.
So,
It might.
All right.
It might.
Let's get to some of the props that Bobby is on here. We spoke so much about the Browns Bengals game. T. Higgins, a guy you're looking at today. Why?
Yeah. T. Higgins on his receiving yards at 63.5. I love his matchup. Now he gets Denzel Ward in coverage this week, which sounds a little bit, Denzel Ward, former, top 5 pick. Denzel Ward's not having a great year. He's been torched a couple games, 96, 75, 89 yards. He's riding high really on one game versus Atlanta in week 4 where he played exceptionally well. Other than that, he's been average to below average as a cornerback. Jamar Chase gets David Emerson. I watched David Emerson completely shut down Mike Evans 2 weeks ago, and I vowed to never test him again, even though it is Jamar Chase. We're buying low on Higgins on this line. Earlier in the season, he hit this in 4 or 5 games with Chase when T. Higgins finished the game, and he averaged 85 yards per game in that span. So this offense is moving. They're playing a lot better. Burrow's playing the best football, I think, possibly of his career, with the exception of the postseason last year. So give me Higgins over 63.5. I do think he has the better matchup in a game where we should see the ball move pretty frequently.
Yeah. That is going to be – I mean, listen, now that we've seen this significant line movement on this game, I mean, this is a major move on game day. It was literally – the line was 5 at 6:50 a.m. this morning. Like, for me, that was like 40 minutes ago. So I don't know who knows what, but limits expand on Sunday mornings, and once they did – it has to be smart money really flooded the market on Cleveland here, pushing this line down to 3.5. So I'm fascinated now with this game. I don't have a piece of this game in any stretch, but I will be watching this game intently with my Bengals AFC North ticket at 3-1 in my back pocket. All right, game of the day from a Vegas perspective. It's been the most talked about line of the week. Vikings-Lions. I'll get to it a little bit later in my play of the day. But you are on a Vikings receiver not named Justin Jefferson to have a good game.
I am. I think this is an Adam Thielen game, and this line's pretty damn low. 47.5 receiving yards. It was 45.5 when it opened. Moved up 2 yards the other night. So he hit this in two of his 4 last games. The 2 that he missed, well, it was the New York Jets and the Dallas Cowboys, both top 5 in passing DVOA. Not great matchups for him. Detroit, on the other hand, 19th overall in passing DVOA, 24th overall against wide receiver 2. So he's getting a good matchup. He gets either Will Harris or Mike Hughes. Okudah will likely tail Justin Jefferson like he did in the week 3 matchup. Thielen played exceptionally well in that Detroit game. I think it carries over to this game. Average depth of target in that game against Detroit, 12 yards. He's getting the ball. He's getting downfield in his routes against Detroit. It was his 3rd highest of the season. And he was targeted 8 times, which is higher than his season average of 6 times per game. With the over-under set at 51.5, they're going to be moving the ball a lot. So another buy low spot for Adam Thielen. I think he shows up big for them. 47.5 yards is one of my favorite plays today.
Yeah, 6 for 61 in that game in week 3. I like that look a lot, Bobby, a lot. It's a good look.
One more for you, Bob. And again, by the way, Kirk Cousins this year has been terrible against zone coverage. His numbers are not very good. He's been absolutely amazing against man, which is where Justin Jefferson probably excels more than anything else. So the fact that you're getting zone and bracket coverage for Justin Jefferson a lot today means that Adam Thielen may be the beneficiary of that. So good luck, Bobby. But you're also looking at the Buffalo Bills because nobody circles the wagons. Let's go, Buffalo. Anytime touchdown scorer, Josh Allen. Where's your handicap here?
We talked about it a little bit earlier in the segment. Josh Allen to score a touchdown is plus 170. We're expecting wind. We're expecting snow. It's a divisional game that matters in the AFC East. I wouldn't trust James Cook, the rookie, in the goal line situation. Probably wouldn't trust Devin Singletary either if I'm getting on the goal line. It's a Josh Allen day. He scored twice against the Jets earlier in the season. Last season against Atlanta in the snow, he scored 2 more rushing touchdowns. And yes, he's played the Jets probably more than any other team. It's an AFC East matchup. We talked about that. He has 5 rushing touchdowns against the Jets, more than any other team in the entire NFL. So give me Josh Allen to score a touchdown plus 170 in December in Buffalo.
He uses his legs more in games that are more important. And I think it's pretty obvious that this game is about as important as it gets for Buffalo. The AFC East is wide open if the Jets win this game. Honestly, I couldn't tell you who wins the AFC East if the Jets win this game. It's about as up in the air as you could get any division with 3 teams in it at this stage, especially if the Dolphins then win, because then you would have the Bills at 9-4, and then you'd have the Jets and the Dolphins both with 8 wins, or the Dolphins with 8 wins, the Jets with, I mean, it would be 3 teams with either 8 or 9 wins with 4 weeks left in the season. So, and the Jets would have the tiebreaker over Buffalo, and the Jets also, if they beat Miami in their next game, would have the tiebreaker over Miami because they got the benefit of facing Skylar Thompson in that first matchup. So this is about, I would say right now, if the Bills win today, they win the division. That's how I feel about this game. And I think if the Jets win today, I have no freaking idea who wins the AFC East. Bobo, great stuff, man. Josh Allen, which of these 3 are your favorite? Do you have any 1.5, 2 units, or are they all flat 1 unit across the board today?
I'm going flat 1 unit this week. I've been doing a lot better in NBA than NFL. I'm trying to just mellow out, get a little bit closer to even than normal. Thielen would be, if anything, it would be closer to the 1.5 unit for me.
I was just looking at the box score. Sorry, Mark. In that Jefferson Lions game, 3 for 14 matched up against Akuda, and the Lions. They pressure you, they blitz you. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, likes to just sit back and just let his guys back there and do their thing. And clearly Akuda on Jefferson is a plus matchup. I think that's going to be one that I think
I have been saying this all week long, and I will defer to you, Jared, as the loving nerd of the group with your DVOA and your EPA and your IRS and your ABC, whatever the hell it is that you look at. But all those numbers for Detroit, both offensively and defensively, are trending in the right direction. Their defense is getting better. Their offense is getting better. Yeah. When they have St. Brown and Swift in the lineup, they are nearly unstoppable on offense. And everything in the Vikings is trending different. Their offense that was great is starting to peel back. Their defense that was better in the beginning of the year now starting to get worse, and all your DVOAs and all that other stuff. Like, yeah, I know you know what you're talking about, and I know what I'm talking about. I just don't know all the acronyms and abbreviations and everything else. But I'm smart enough to know that those things are trending in the wrong direction. So Lions feel like the right side here today is where I was driving at with the whole thing. That's where the number, that's where the lines are derived from these days. Like, it's EPA, DVOA, all those metrics. That's how Vegas makes the lines. Like, it's not one thing more than the other. It's a stew of them all. Over. Listen, the nerds are taking over, Mark. They are taking over. I was nerd friendly always. I was a silent, smart kid. I just you weren't the one that stuffed me in the locker back in middle school. No, that wasn't you. No. All right. No, that was definitely not me. I was the same size as all the nerds in high school. All this poundage only came on post-college. So, there we go. That's fair.
And I was the class clown, guys. As a happy medium,
I believe
that DVOA, I caved in this year. I signed up for the Football Outsiders for PFF. You need a little bit of both. Use your gut, mix it with some analytics.
Yes, 100%. Feel confident. Way to go. And next time you wear a Devils hat, give me the old NJ logo with the green. Thank you, please. Let's go Devils. There you go.
You got it, brother.
Bobby Stanley.
I didn't even notice the Devils hat. Good look.
Oh, man, how could you not? Listen, by the way, I love the way they're playing. They can't win the Cup. They just don't have enough playoff experience. Team's too young this year. They're going to be fun. They're going to be tough out, but I don't think
they're a fun team to watch. I haven't watched much hockey this year, but I've watched some Devils this year.
Home games are a blast. I went to one last week. I'm probably going to do a couple more between now and February. It's awesome.
Say hi to my friend Catherine Bogart. She's their host. She does a great job. We used to be friends back when I lived in Jersey.
When I go home to New York, I'm going to see the Islanders game at UBS Arena. So I'm excited to take the kids to their first ever hockey game.
Hockey live is 10 times better than football live. 100%. They're completely flipped. There's TV and hockey and football.
I can't stand attending football games. When people ask me to go, I don't like to go.
I won't do it.
I only
if I get free Giants tickets, I give them away.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting in windy MetLife in January.
I'm a complete
snob at this point. No fun.
But thank you guys. Best of luck on your stuff today.
Bobby, great stuff as always, brother. Again, Prop Holiday, 2 L's, HOLLIDAY. Always great to talk to you there, Bobby. Continued success today, and let's get Adam Thielen to cash over for us. All right, Jared, a couple of other items of business to get to here just real quick. We talked about a lot of the line movements today. I'll just quickly ask you one question on one more game. Are you really going to lay 17 points in an NFL game ever in your life? Because I'm not.
No. We've actually seen some buyback on Houston. I talked to our pal Casey Degnan from Westgate, does a great job helping me out with the column every week. it did kind of get pushed back off the 17.5. I did see it touch 18 at a couple of shops. And then once it got to 17.5, it looked like it was on Thursday, Friday-ish. That's when you saw a little bit of Houston buyback. And he said at this point, if you don't see it at 17.5, 17, you're probably not going to see it. We saw it a little bit. So there's obviously just a slight appetite in the market for the Texans above that number of 17. But then you have to ask yourself the other question. Do you really want to take 17 with a team that just gave up 3 non-offensive touchdowns last week? They held Deshaun Watson in check. Listen, their defensive numbers have been pretty good, but their offense and special teams is so inept. They're just giving up tons of easy field position scores and lots of those little, 30-yard fields, short fields in plus territory for the other offenses to navigate. And it's really tough to bet on a team when they're playing that poorly on one side of the ball that you just have to literally pray that they don't screw up. If the Texans don't screw up today on offense, they probably keep this within the number. But my guess is Davis Mills now back for Kyle Allen. I don't want anything to do with this freaking game.
I mean, the only legitimate way I could conceive playing this game is take Dallas in the first half, and you're not going to get it under 10. That's the problem. So you're going to be at 10. So you're assuming that there's – and I wouldn't in this situation even co-sign buying a half point to get it down to 10 at 10.5, because if they're not ahead by 14, guess what? They're not – it's just not going to happen for them. So they've got to get out early.
I don't think you can buy points in first half bets.
In first half anyway. You can do that. But regardless, it's just I wouldn't even co-sign it if you could. So the simple point is that's the only way you bet that game. All right, let's move on here and get to our plays of the day. Before we do and go to Pickswise.com, I want to remind you guys that Let's Bet It is presented by Superbook Sports. Go to Superbook.com today or download the app. And this season, we're all rooting for safeties. That's because Superbook will give you a $50 bonus for each safety scored this season. Just place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or total. And if there's a safety scored in any game on Sunday, not just the one you bet on, any game across the board on Sunday, you'll get a $50 bonus. Visit Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Again, Superbook.com. Jared, with that, before we get to our plays of the day, take us to Pickswise.com, the place of knowledge, depth, excellence, wonderful writing from people like yourself and myself. What do we have on the site today?
I'll give Andrew Ortenberg a shout. He's got a play on this Browns-Bengals game, not on the side, which, again, as we've discussed over the last 20 minutes or so, has been a bit of a mover and a shaker. So keep an eye on the side, but the total is where Andrew Ortenberg would like to call your attention to today. And then we got a couple of NBA plays on the site as well. Hermantas Nida has dos. Raptors, Magic, Bulls, Hawks, couple of sides for you. One of them an underdog, money line. So should be some fun NBA action today if that's how you want to tickle your fancy here on this Sunday.
All right, Jared. You have been salivating about this game all show long. I cannot keep people waiting any longer.
I have.
Please lay your play of the day on us.
Lions. This is the sharp. Right, the soup du jour is to fade this Vikings team because everyone's looking at this line and they're saying, how are the 10-2 Vikings an underdog? Well, let me tell you how. All of those nerd numbers that we talk about on a weekly basis, I won't get into them because they all point in one direction, and that's up, trending arrow up Detroit, trending arrow down Minnesota. And that's all well and good. They still have to go out there and play the game. And these two teams match up in a very unique way. And if you go watch or, look at the box score from this game a few weeks ago, back in, I believe it was week 3, the Lions had a 10-point lead with fourth quarter. And Minnesota just kind of sliced and diced their way back into the game. KJ Osborne had the game-winning touchdown in the final minute. And that pushed the game over. This game was trending under and Detroit until it wasn't. And I hope that we don't see that kind of miraculous comeback by Minnesota this week. They've been sleeping with angels all year long. I don't know how they covered last week against the Jets, getting outgained by 200 plus, and the Jets going 1 for 6 in the red zone. That's probably why they didn't cover. And you look at this Lions team; they're the number 1 team in the red zone this season. Over the last 3 weeks, like we said, trending up, 84% touchdown percentage in the red zone. And then, oh by the way, injury nugget that just got dropped into the market about 30 minutes ago. Right tackle or left tackle, Christian Darrisaw out with a concussion. Wow. Arguably the most important player on this Vikings offense besides Justin Jefferson, right? It's the protection and it's the ability to keep Kirk Cousins upright. He doesn't do well under pressure. The Lions have one of the highest blitz rates in the league. Aaron Glenn is relentless. He is a cavalier gunslinger calling defensive schemes, and we've started to see this defense play a lot better. You mentioned it too this week, this show, and Clef TA tweeted this out yesterday. With Swift and Brown in the lineup, the Lions are 8-0-1 against the spread this season.
It's unreal.
And both guys are in the lineup today and trending in a healthy direction. I bet this is a 3-unit play for me. It's a 3-star play on the site. I bet 3 units on it. I'll put 3 units on the spreadsheet. That is where we're at with the Lions today, laying it at home. Short number against the Vikings.
Well done, Jared. All right. I have been saying this pick all week long. I've given it out several times across many different platforms. I will stay here once again and take the Carolina Panthers, getting 4 points as they travel to Seattle in what feels like an under-the-radar game here. Why are we going with Carolina? Well, Seattle has the second worst run defense in all of the NFL. Donta Foreman has been on absolute fire since taking over for Christian McCaffrey. Carolina's going to be able to run the ball. Not only that, when you insert Sam Darnold back into the offense, last week, Carolina put up 23 points against the Denver Broncos, who might be the best defense in the league. They scored 23. Now, I'm not sitting here asserting that Carolina's offense is going to light the scoreboard up. But Sam Darnold, who has the respect and knows the locker room better because he's been there longer than everybody else, at least will keep this offense clean and serviceable enough to put up enough points. But what's the real bugaboo here, more than anything, is the simple fact that Carolina's defense, especially as of late, has been absolutely on fire. Over the last 3 games, only allowing 11 points per game, and they've gotten to the quarterback 11 times and sacked the quarterback in the last 3 games here. There is some Seattle regression coming. I think it's here, much like the New York Giants. I think this may be one of the most underrated front fours in all of the NFL that Carolina has. They will get to Geno Smith today. They will make him uncomfortable. Give me Carolina plus the 4. Hurry up and get it because there are some 3.5s out there in the marketplace. But Carolina plus 4 and even a little sprinkle on the money line for an outright winner here with Carolina today, Jared.
I like it. I'm putting it in one of my contest plays this week. Don't let me down.
I hope not. I hope to stay. After my tease on my play of the day yesterday snuck through at the very last minute, we will try to stay.
That was a fun game, though. I'm glad it went over because then next year when we do this game, we won't have to hear about how many years in a row the game's gone under. That's really the only reason I'm happy it went over.
But the total is still going to be under 33 next year, right there.
It's still going to be like 33.
Yeah, it's still going to be 33, 32 and a half. So there is that. All right, wishing you a wonderful Sunday. Make sure you guys go download the Pickswise app. It's available on the Apple Store and Google Play. Subscribe to that Pickswise YouTube channel. Make sure you guys leave us some comments. Let us know what questions you have. We'll try to get to all of them here as we go along. But make sure you check out Pickswise.com as well. For Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinno. You guys have a wonderful Week 14 in the NFL. Go cash some tickets. We'll be back tomorrow for recapping the NFL Sunday on Let's Bet It. Have a wonderful day. Go get it. Go bet it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.